You've been on radio for quite a while. So let's talk about the changes that I've seen, the two biggest changes from when you began to present day on radio.
I think when I began, radio was basically it. I mean, television was there, but during the day, radio was it. Everybody listened to radio. It was there. And someone like John Burks, for example, I mean, all day you would go around Johannesburg, and the first thing people said to you was, "Did you hear what Burks said this morning?" I mean, it was incredible. John Burks was there. So radio was everything. Now, of course, there's been an explosion. There are far more stations, and of course there's the whole online explosion, there's social media. I mean, even our own radio station, which is, you know, as well as being, I say my former radio station, 702, I think it'll always be my radio station. I mean, as well as being an incredible vehicle for information and for community assistance, I think, now, you know, it's also a very successful business. And in the days when, you know, you read adverts were businesses. Now adverts are only one side of it. You drive people to online content, you do this, that, and the other. It's incredible. So I think that side of things is the biggest change. And I think also social media, Twitter, which I hate with a passion undying. Not the concept of it. The concept is amazing, but for some reason, it universally seems to bring out the worst in people. And it brings out bigots and racists and bullies and cowards. And I think that's probably, those are the two biggest changes that have come about. I think there was a lot of concern, and I'm talking now from the talk radio side of things, from 702, that with the explosion of social media and the internet, the information explosion, if I can put it that way, that with people being able to get their information anywhere, instantly, that the future of talk radio might have been quite negative. But in fact, it's been the opposite. The explosion of information has meant that people are bombarded with all this information, and they need a reference point. And luckily for us, 702 has been a reference point. And people get all this opinion, all this information, and they need somewhere to go just to say, well, hang on a second, let's put it into context. And I think as a result, 702 is more relevant perhaps than it's ever been. But I look back, my first day on radio, to do a sports report, arriving, and a lady called Marita Eager was the news reader, and a very formidable lady who's now very high up in the BBC in London. She's a legend. And I arrived in expecting voice coaches, expecting a sort of a James Bond studio, people to tell me what to do. And there was literally a spike with some news copy stuck on it. And she said, "You type up that and read news reports." Well, compare that to today, you know, it's quite incredible. I feel like I've died and I'm at my own funeral.
So what place do you think talk radio now has in amongst all of this?
Absolute relevance, absolute relevance. And in a funny way, I mean, when I started in talk radio, it was the old South Africa. And I think a lot of people probably watching this don't actually remember the old South Africa. Go back, it was a different world. It was a scary, scary place, particularly in terms of media. And I think that talk radio, we played a major role in helping to bring about the change, the democratic change, and also preparing people for it. So there was a major role, but in many ways, in those early days, there was only one game in town. Is South Africa going to continue with or without a revolution, a civil war? I mean, it sounds dramatic to say it, but that's actually what the question was. Nowadays, of course, we're dealing with so many other things. And in many ways, it's far more complicated at the moment, even if the issues aren't always political. It's far more complicated economically, socially, all these issues are there. And so I think that to do talk radio now, and talk radio itself, in a way you have to work much harder. It needs more preparation, it needs more balance, it needs more, I suppose, information than ever before. So I think its role is absolutely assured. But of course, as I say, it's not just on radio now, it's this whole Christmas tree of other platforms that come with it. So it's very, very exciting. And anyone going into radio, I think it's a wonderful career.
I mean, we said you made the mistakes and you learned the lessons. What advice can you pass on to young journalists?
I think first of all, learn your craft. And I think that obviously there are room for mavericks and for people who are outside the mold, because everyone can't be the same. But I think in just about every industry, whether it's sport, whether it's radio, whatever, there is best practice. And I think that there's a format, there are rules, of things that have been done. And I think that some young on-air people or young people in media think that just to break those rules is a way to be noticed. But I think the best advice I can give is that often the format, those rules, allow you to perform at an optimum level. And yet it also sets you free to be yourself within it. If I can explain that without sounding too complicated. So I think don't knock the past. Learn the best rules of the game, whatever you do, whatever business you get into. And then within that, make your own personality shine through. I think that's the best advice I can give.
Now the big question, everyone wants to know the answer to, what is next for you? Are you going to be staying in radio, media, going out of media?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. And it's scary. It's very, very scary because I had, as I say, this plan. I was going to go, I was going to leave. Now, I had various ideas in my head, but hadn't formalized any of them or hadn't spoken about them to the people. Hadn't any offers. I have no offers at the moment, formal offers. And I think I thought that the minute I stopped, I'm not saying that the phone wouldn't stop ringing, but because it hasn't. I mean, people have come up and had various things to say, etc. But I was expecting perhaps more concrete ideas to come. And initially that's very, very scary. Now 702 have been incredibly generous and I don't have to find something to do immediately. And I'm not out on the street with a placard saying, I once had a talk show.
Yes.
In fact, my wife gave me that as a retirement present on a bit of cardboard, which was quite amusing, which I'm going to frame and keep at home. So I think initially it's been very, very scary. But the other side is I don't want to rush into something and commit myself too quickly. Obviously, I have I'm a brand, if I can put it that way. And there are, people know me. Some people like me, some people don't me. But I think there are certain aspects to that brand which are advantages. So I'm basically talking to a lot of people I trust about how to maximize that. I want to find something that obviously pays the bills. I want to find something that allows me to sleep at night. In other words, with so many problems in this country, to make a contribution. But as I've said many times on radio, the economy is perhaps the most important thing for dealing with the problems in South Africa. So jobs, creating wealth, attracting investment, those are massive contributions. And the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, one of my favorite people and one of the favorite people I've interviewed, I should say, and for him to phone me at the end of my last show, not set up at all, was a huge, huge, huge honor. But he said that jobs, everybody should be looking at creating jobs. So quite where that is going to be, I don't know. Obviously, I love sport. Obviously, I love tourism. Obviously, I love Johannesburg, Pretoria, particularly the cities, redevelopment of cities, maximizing their potential. Those are areas that interest me. So if there was something that could pay the bills that touched some of those bases, I would like it to be in that line. But the answer is, honestly, I've had some discussions with people that are fairly advanced, but at this stage I can honestly say that I don't exactly know what I'm going to be doing next.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I could talk to you all day. But thank you so much for being here, and best of luck for all your future endeavors, the new adventures that you'll be embarking on.
Thank you very much indeed. It's a great honor to be here.
That was veteran radio personality John Robbie. Until next week, it's goodbye from me.